How y'all doing, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back. This is Mario Matthews, owner and operator of Menace Till Dawn Productions and author of the new book, Hurricane America. Hurricane America is based on the true story, true events of Hurricane Katrina 2005 as told by myself and my grandmother Dolores Matthews. Read this book to learn about the on the ground conditions of the before, during, and after conditions of the middle black family, okay, the average black family, and how we existed in New Orleans, Louisiana, and learn about my family's journey from the disaster area where we will ultimately reunite in Texas. You can pick this book up available right now on Amazon.com, Boco, Barnes and Nobles, Apple. It is available in paperback and ebook versions. You'll find a link in the description that leads you to the sales. Thank you so much for all the love, all the support. Let's get into the video. So today's video, we are talking about the recent visit of the White House to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and the memorial service, the commemoration service that was held on Memorial Day by President Biden, and all of the comments and things that were made in his speech. We are reading this article from the New York Times, and let's get into it, shall we? Let's get back into it. All right. So, Washington, a century after a white mob destroyed a vibrant African American community in Tulsa, Oklahoma, torching hundreds of homes and indiscriminately shooting people in the streets. President Biden told a crowd of survivors that their families' stories of the massacre, quote, will be known in full view. It was the first time a president visited the area to address what happened in Greenwood, a prosperous African American community, which was one of the worst outbreaks of racial violence in the United States, but was largely ignored in the history books. Quote, for much too long, the history of what took place here was told in silence, Mr. Biden said. Quote, while darkness can hide much, it erases nothing. Ladies and gentlemen, for at least the last 20 years, black Americans have been raising concerns about Tulsa, Oklahoma, and many of the, designated Black Wall Street areas throughout the United States being targeted by racist white supremacist mobs, burning businesses and torching the places to the ground. And before I continue, I want to send a quick shout out to Antonio Moore. Please go ahead and subscribe to his channel at Tone Talks on YouTube. He recently did a video outlining, really bringing up the issue of how this is just now being talked about by any presidential administration. We literally had our first black president in the U.S. over a decade ago. And he never even talked about this. He never even visited these areas in which some of the most racist, destructive waves of carnage ever happened in the United States history. Let that sink in for a second. Our first black president never even did this. That's how That's how backwards we are right now. That's how backwards everything is. But let's continue. Let's continue, shall we? Mr. Biden, who made racial equity and justice central themes of his presidency, was in Tulsa to shed light on a painful part of the country's history. He recalled in detail the horror that occurred from May 31st to June 1st, 1921, when angry white people descended on Greenwood, killing as many as 300 people and destroying more than 1,250 homes. Quote, "My fellow Americans, this was not a riot," Mr. Biden said as people in the crowd rose to their feet. Quote, "This was a massacre." A man was strapped to a truck and dragged through the streets, the president said. The bodies of a murdered family was draped over a fence outside their home. An older couple was shot while praying. Quote, "We do ourselves no favors by pretending none of this ever happened," Mr. Biden told the crowd. Quote, "We should know the good, the bad, everything. That's what great nations do. They come to terms with their dark side." Huh. Is that so? Because last I checked, Biden was on record saying that white people in this day and age, in this generation, should not be beholden to any claims of reparations and damages that have occurred during the time of slavery. Yet we're supposed to be coming to terms with our dark history, our dark sides? Really? Is this the light side that we should be looking forward to? Because as far as I'm concerned, we're just doing empty ceremonies if we're not actually putting forth the effort to put truth and reconciliation, reparations, doing what is necessary as a country to properly redistribute wealth from those families who benefit from said atrocities and those institutions, such as the United States federal government, who were built off the backs of slaves. We're just blowing hot air. Let's continue, shall we? And we're just going to jump forward a little bit because we don't want this video to run too long. The NCAA, the NAACP and other civil rights groups have criticized the Biden administration for not taking the steps to cancel student loans, saying that it is one of the biggest obstacles holding back black people from sharing in the wealth of other Americans. Quote, "Student loan debt continues to suppress the economic prosperity of black Americans across the nation," Derek Johnson, the NAACP president, said in a statement. Quote, "You cannot begin to address the racial wealth gap without addressing the student loan debt crisis." Now, thanks to the ADOS movement, in particular, Antonio Moore, who is an attorney from California, and Yvette Carnell, who is a poli-sci grad from Howard University. Thanks to them, we already know that addressing student loans is not going to close the racial wealth gap. It's not. Okay? And we're not even talking about specifically addressing student loans that target specific to black American descendants of slavery, but even more so We already know the data. There's not that many black Americans who actually went to college, let alone knowing the specific data of black American descendants of slavery who went to college. There's not that many of us that went to college. Largely because college isn't a platform that we can afford. So addressing student loans is going to help a small percentage of the population of black American descendants of slavery. But it's not going to address for hundreds of years of atrocities that already occurred, such as Tulsa, Oklahoma. So this begs the question, Mr. Derrick Jackson of the NAACP, president, why do you feel the need to talk about this issue during one of the biggest atrocities that happened post-slavery to black American descendants of slavery? Why do you feel the need to bring up a non-issue? And these are supposed to be our representatives. Moving right along, let's go a little further into the article. All right. How about right here? Here we go. The president's trip came as the country struggles to confront the police brutality towards people of color. Okay, New York Times. Towards people of color a year after the killing of George Floyd by the Minneapolis Police Department galvanized Black Lives Matter protests nationwide. But the political response to recent killings remains uncertain. Mr. Biden had vowed to secure passage of the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act by May 25th, the anniversary of Mr. Floyd's death. This bill, or the bill, will ban the police's use of chokeholds, impose restrictions on deadly force, and make it easier to prosecute police officers for wrongdoing. The administration missed the deadline. Let me say that again. The administration missed that deadline, but lawmakers in both parties have expressed optimism that they would be able to reach a compromise on the legislation in the coming weeks. Let me just say this for the record, everybody. Okay? Let me just say this for the record. If we are not making part of a reparations initiative to properly root out white supremacist terrorism and ideology in every institution across the United States of America, not just the police department, then we will continue having these issues. Okay? Part of a reparations initiative specifically to black American descendants of slavery should be a decree to sniff out and uproot every single white supremacist terroristic element throughout the land of the United States of America. Until that happens, we will continue to have unfortunate events such as George Floyd. Okay? Now, people might be saying, oh my God, you want a witch hunt? Oh my God, you want a witch hunt? Y'all wasn't saying that when black people was getting lynched on those trees, predominantly black men in business suits who probably would be millionaires, billionaires today if given a fair opportunity, a fair chance at the American dream. Called that a witch hunt? Continuing. Despite investigations, no one was ever convicted of crimes related to the Tulsa, Oklahoma massacre. Mr. Biden has promised that his Justice Department will be more active in helping to root out biases and bigotry in American police departments. The Justice Department has already begun pattern or practice investigations in Louisville, Kentucky, and Minneapolis, which are intended to examine excessive force, biased policing, and other misconduct by officers. My statement still stands. Okay? Everyone who knows anything about the Tulsa, Oklahoma race massacre, everyone knows that there were civilians being deputized, that it was people in fire departments, judges, bank tellers, convenience store owners, your average, everyday Joe Smo white person in Tulsa, Oklahoma at that time was a part of a large-scale riot that burned and killed black families and destroyed black businesses and black wealth. Wealth that would have been, in today's terms, worth billions of dollars. Conceivably. My statement still stands. Until we put in a part of a reparations initiative that root out and sniff out all of these racist, white supremacist elements throughout the United States of America and in all institutions, this will continue to happen. We have to get serious as a nation. We have to do some introspective analysis. We have to make the necessary sacrifices in order to make sure that black American descendants of slavery are given the proper protections, provisions, guidance, and resources and equity needed to be placed on the scale of economic, socioeconomic wealth and inclusion that we should have been after slavery. We got to make that sacrifice as a society. We got to do what is right. We have to make sure that black American descendants of slavery are given what is owed to us. Finishing the article. Let's finish off the article. The Reverend Al Sharpton, who has observed Mr. Biden's evolution for decades, attended his speech in Tulsa. He graded the president's performance on civil rights in an interview this spring. Quote, I think he has gone from probably a 65 to somewhere in the early 80s. Mr. Sharpton said, I think that we all haven't gotten to the finals yet. He may go even higher than that. Let me just say this. At the moment, we all know President Joe Biden's past record of backing some of the most destructive legislation that it has ever wrought the black community. More specifically, black American descendants of slavery rather. At this particular point, I don't know anyone who would just sit back and give him ratings such as Reverend Al Sharpton. Okay? This ain't a popularity contest. This is real live families being held in a socioeconomic position that they were not supposed to be in since the dawn of slavery. We've had many different institutions, many different presidents, many different policies and laws that have been passed to make certain to keep us in a subservient state of existence since the dawn of slavery. It's time for people like Al Sharpton and any other person who are black to finally come to terms with the fact that our community is in dire need of help, and we should not be celebrating until what is owed to us is given. End of discussion. It's that simple. Well, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. I really appreciate y'all for y'all time. Man, look, I know I've been gone for a while, but I just been cooking in the lab on this book. You know what I'm saying? Hurricane America. Go ahead and pick that up. Man, much love, much respect. A shout out to my grandmother, Dolores Matthews. I love you. Okay, we did an amazing job with this book. I really, really appreciate this. This is this is the best book I've ever written, ever touched, ever laid eyes on. It is amazing. So please go ahead and pick that up on Amazon, Hurricane America. Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, Boco, Apple. It is available now. Thank y'all so much and take care. Peace.